Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to Tea Talk Thursday. So, I am Tamika, your Philly eco-friendly lifestyle travel expert. You can find more about me at lifeandpumps.com. Tea Talk Thursday is something that I bring to you every Thursday. It is a live organic conversation hosted on Facebook and YouTube. So, hello to my friends on YouTube and on Facebook. And ideally, what we do is we chat about whatever topics are currently trending in the news. It could be something that's just near and dear to me, or maybe something that one of my followers have said, hey, let's talk about this. So I am so excited to have Dr. Melissa Tate-Scruse with me today because, I said previously that the schedule that I had for today and for next week was really talking about something totally different. And in my spirit, I just couldn't do it. Like I could not do it. I looked at the news feed and so much going on, and I realized that we couldn't just talk about organizing our house when outside is in shambles. Our families are crumbling, people are hurting, and everywhere you look, everything I saw was I can't breathe. And it just brought back so many memories and so many things. And especially for me, when Trayvon Martin, when he died and when his killer, his murderer, was found not guilty, all of those feelings came rushing back in. My son was little. We talked about it, and he looked at me, and I was heartbroken because I could not tell him anything. Like I had nothing that I could reassure him with. So I reached out to Dr. Tate-Scruse, and I said, please, please, please get on this call with me and help me help other people who are definitely going through what I'm going through. They're feeling trapped. They can't breathe. They don't know what to do. We don't know what to say to our children. We don't want our children to see us crumbling and crying. But is that a good thing or a bad thing? So if you would just introduce yourself, let them know who you are, we could totally get started.
Hi, everybody. My name is, we'll just go with Dr. Melissa, the easiest way. And by trade, I'm a mental health professional. I've been doing this for about 15 years now. I'm working private practice currently in the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina area. What's up, Charlotte? And I've been working in mental health, like I said, for about 15 years. This is not something that even as a mental health professional, I'm immune to. I have 5 daughters, but I have a brown husband, and for my father passed away, a brown father. I have brown brothers, I have brown cousins, I have brown friends and loved ones. And so for me, I'm just going to speak, take the doctor hat off and let me just be Melissa real quick. And just for me, I can say that I have been equally affected, just like you all, just like everybody else, because when I see these men and children and women as well, but particularly the men and the children, the Tamir Rice and the Trayvon Martin and the Michael Brown and the Eric Garner and Ahmaud Arbery, and now we have George, and I hate that I can't even remember his last name right now. Yes, and so when I see those images, I'm haunted and re-traumatized all over again. Mm-hmm. It's like just when you get over one and you try to get to some space of understanding and kind of putting it in some sort of context, here comes another one. Yeah. And I think just from a Black perspective, what makes it even more difficult for us to grasp is that we know that this also happens without telephones and recordings. And so it's like it's entrenched in our psychology. It's entrenched in our, in the fabric of African-American history that we have often been ignored, devalued. Our voice has been squelched. Our word versus that of whomever we're combating at the time. And so it's such a deeply entrenched emotional, spiritual, physical grieving. If we want to call it that, it's grieving. It's the sadness, it's the shock, it's the anger, it's the disbelief, it's the feeling of isolation. There's part of me that wants to turn off all media and just stay in my little bubble in my house. And then there's a part of me that wants to scream and fright. There's a part of me that wants to cry. There's a part of me that just wants to grab my babies and everybody I know and just protect them. There's a part of me that just wants to pray till no end. And so I can't imagine that the feelings that I have are any different than what everybody else is going through. So that's me taking my doctor hat off and just being completely authentic with how I feel today.
Absolutely. I feel like that's important because oftentimes we see professionals and we don't realize that they're human. And, I can only imagine the things that you hear just in terms of work, but then to come home and to turn it on and it to be amplified by what is continually happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I'm privy to the most difficult conversations in the world. I've spoken to, American veterans. I've spoken to, of all ages, different wars, different experiences. I've spoken to, people who have struggled with their deepest, darkest thoughts, suicide or homicidal thoughts, who've dealt with trauma of all forms, rape, abuse, neglect of all forms, domestic violence. And so, but this is another tragedy that kind of hits us globally. And when I was trying to, just prepare my mind for how to have this conversation with you, I'm looking at and I'm thinking about just how do you talk with people about death and tragedy and grieving, and it's so in your face in the media. How do we talk to our children about that? How do we ourselves manage it? And so just a couple of things have come to mind. So for me, it's very important that I guard my mind from certain things because I do hear things all day long. I have to go through a process of kind of decompression and letting work be work.
Okay.
So that when I come home, I'm not spilling out, fussing and cussing at people when I walk in the door. Otherwise, I'll be like an emotional mess. So I do thank God that He's guarded my mind in a way and just giving me enough insight and wisdom and grounding in Him that I'm not letting my emotions spill over. With that said, I think it's really important that we as adults do that we really self-check and kind of know where we are, how we stand, how we feel before we initiate that conversation with our children.
Absolutely.
So, we want to be truthful and authentic, but we also don't want our anxieties, fears, and angers to become their anxieties, fears, and angers.
Absolutely.
And so
my whole thing with that is that, and it's funny that you say that. Someone yesterday, we were chatting on Facebook and she said, her son is, I want to say he was like 13 or 14. And now he's kind of watching things on the media and he's seeing things that he came to her kind of with it, like, look at this. And she was so like, what do I do? And I told her, we got to have real, authentic conversations with our children.
Absolutely.
I said, it goes back to the whole, when they tell you don't use cute words for, the body parts.
Yes, that's so true.
Exactly right. Because what's happening in the world is unfortunately happening. And we need our children to be aware and to know their rights. And what I always say to my son, because he is a hothead and he is that one who I know will charge at authority. And I say to him, that is not your job. That is my job. Your job is to come home alive.
Yeah.
So every time I see or hear anything that affects any of these African-American children and it's at the hands of the police or whomever, I'm like, what is your job? And I have to remind him, your job is to come home alive.
That's so good. That's perfect. That's perfect. And I do think that preteen and older age is the perfect way to have that conversation is you give them one tangible thing or two tangible things that you need to say, okay, when it goes left,
right,
your job is to come home. Absolutely. And I think that even in having these conversations and having them with our children, it's really important because it equips them, number one, with, kind of like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've talked about this before, so they're not completely blindsided. Our brown children need to know they need not be blindsided when they get out into the community and, stuff goes left. Right. So these incidents are horrible, but they're also examples of how to have the conversations that we need to have with our children. With that said, you give them those one or two tangible things. Your job is to come home. My job is to fight for you. My job is to protect you. And
Absolutely.
in the moment, because any bad reaction on the part of, whoever is being questioned or detained will end up in a bad result.
Yeah.
And we know what that looks like. It doesn't take much for the result to go bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you to ingrain that in your son, I feel like is a powerful weapon. Your job is to come home, because regardless of what is yelling, who's yelling at him or what they're saying, in his mind, he just needs to zone out and say, my job is to go home.
Exactly.
My
Yes.
job is to go home. My
Yes.
job is to make it home. And so I think that's awesome that you started that. And that's good and tangible for, like I said, preteen and up. You can start having that conversation. There's some children that, I would start with asking them what they know or what they heard.
Okay.
Don't offer too much information for your 6-year-olds, your 7-year-olds, your 8-year-olds. What did you hear? What did you know? What do you know? Where did you see that? And for all kids, fact check them. Where did you hear that from? Because we know that the media's job is to sensationalize the headlines and put a spin on it that's unique, or put a spin on it that colors the story in a certain way, that creates the narrative. And so it's our job to be, grounded in the facts and grounded in making sure that they're getting the right information. And even in having the conversation, you're trying to be a part of not only the present conversation, but any other future conversation that might come up, or that you're creating a platform of trust. You're creating the groundwork so that they know that they can come back to you with this conversation, because it's sticky and it's hurtful, or it's confusing, or it's shocking. And so we're really creating groundwork to have the future conversations that we'll continue to have with our kids as well.
Absolutely. So I really like that. And I don't think that oftentimes as parents, and I know me because I feel like I'm so proactive, I'm the cool mom, I guess, is that I don't know that I would have stopped and said, what do you know? Because I'm on overload already. So I think in my mind, I'm feeling like my kid is on overload too. So I need to help them decompress. Meanwhile, they may have not really heard the full story. Right. And I think that as parents, then we need to discern, do we want them to know the full story?
Do we want them to know?
Great key. And hopefully people will realize that's important. That's important. That's important.
So I had a conversation with my 13-year-old yesterday. 13-year-old girl, and she had previously heard us, me talking to my 18-year-old about it. And so in preparation for this conversation, I'm like, okay, let me practice what I preach, right? So I called her in, sat down. I said, that case we were talking about, yesterday with the man and the police officer? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, I wanted to know what you heard about it. Like, what did you see? She said, well, I saw the video this morning. I said, you saw the video? She said, yeah. So she's beyond me, because myself, I couldn't see the video. I wouldn't see the video. I read the article. I saw the image was enough for me. And I decided purposefully, on purpose, again, to guard my mind and not watch the video. So I asked her, did you saw the video? She said, yeah. I said, well, what did you see? And she proceeded to describe what she saw. Well, I saw this officer do this, and then the one officer over here, and no one was really saying anything. And then I saw him moving and saying he couldn't breathe. And then eventually he just stopped saying anything and stopped moving. And people were telling him, he can't breathe, he's not moving, and he didn't do anything. And so I'm like, wow. And so I said, well, what did you think about that? She was like, it's scary, because I don't know if something like that is going to happen to someone we know. And so that's the conversation. That's the conversation. So had I led with, girl, did you see what happened to the, you know what I mean? Then it would have turned into my conversation, not our conversation. And so with our kids, I think it's really powerful at some point to just allow them to lead and say how they felt about it, and say what they saw and what are their concerns. And then you can parent. You know what I'm saying?
That is amazing. I mean, that you said a mouthful. Like, we can end the call right You said a mouthful.
Mission accomplished.
Right. You said an entire mouthful, because that is true, because we don't know what they've seen. Now, as far as the video, don't watch it. I'm telling you, if I could unsee it, I absolutely would. And how I saw it is, when you scroll through, sometimes things just play. And I was reading the article, and in the article it was playing, and I was like, what is that? Because I had heard bits and pieces, but I hadn't didn't get the full story. So as I'm reading the articles, the video is playing, and I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
And when I see, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, they're telling him. And then, I had to take a step back. And I know some of you out there who are watching are going to be very angry at me for this. And I'm going to take the jab.
Take that.
Initially, when I looked at it, I said, well, did he realize he was killing them? Like, was that his intent? And I don't want to, I don't want to believe that people that we hire to protect and serve go to work every day with the intent to kill. I don't want to believe that. And I know that's naive, but that is not what I want to believe. So I watched the video and I said, well, maybe he didn't intend to. But at the point that he put his hands in his pocket and he kind of had this smirk, I was enraged, because I was like, okay, he's telling you he can't breathe. And when you first hear him say, I can't breathe, oh, my neck, oh, my, you know how that song goes, my neck, my back. So it's like a joke. So at first I said, oh, the cop is thinking he's joking. And then I said, well, the people around him are inciting it. So the cop is really like, yeah, no. Y'all playing. There's nothing wrong with him. But at the point that his hands are in his pocket, he's kneeling, and he kind of looks up with that smirk, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Yeah. And at that point I was like, okay, yeah, this is not okay. Yeah. And then so many people were having conversations like, well, if I was there, I would have jumped in and done XYZ.
Would you have done?
Exactly.
It's so hard to say. And I don't think you need to apologize for what your gut feeling was as you were watching it. One of the analogies that I made on social media, and it seemed to really ring a bell with people, but it was just honestly how I was feeling at the time, was when I made a comparison between the choke point of the woman who was calling the police, calling 911 from Central Park, saying this African-American man is harassing me, the choke point of the dog versus the choke point of the man who had a knee in the back of his neck. And I also don't apologize for what I saw in that video versus that picture, which was that there was a moment where her caring concern for her dog kicked in, and she realized that her dog wasn't breathing or couldn't breathe. And there was a moment where she was basically choking her dog as she was calling 911 to say that this man was threatening me. The dog couldn't breathe. So the dog's wiggling, and he's literally off all fours, hanging by the leash. And at some point she realized the dog barked and was wiggling and struggling. At some point she realized that the dog couldn't breathe. And her caring concern for her dog kicked in, and she let him down, and she kind of tended to him. That same caring concern was not applied. From what I could tell in that picture and from what I read in that article, and again, I did not see the video, but from what I can see with my own two eyes, the same care and concern was not applied to the man who was saying he couldn't breathe. And it was just all too familiar for what we saw with Eric Garner. I can't breathe. The care and concern is overwhelmed by the need for power, control, and authority. And that is a really fine, difficult line to watch from the outside in and not feel some kind of way about it.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have some comments. So let me read the comments. So she's saying that I don't think that his initial intent was to kill George Floyd, but when he repeatedly said, I can't breathe, the officer showed no regard for his life. Absolutely. I mean,
that's all right in line.
I get to know that other people felt that as well.
Absolutely. I also don't want to believe that I'm going to kill a man today, but I believe the intent was, I'm going to exert my power and control and take authority of the situation, regardless of, of your choke point, regardless of where you are. I don't believe he intended to kill him.
Absolutely. So we have another one that says, yeah, she doesn't think that was the initial intent, but what is the limit? Absolutely. What is the limit? I believe that the intent, once he did not get off his neck, also there were 2 other officers holding him. So was the force unnecessary? Right. I mean, it was. And then they put forth a new video because, that they were trying to say that, he was resisting arrest. I'm not sure how many people, can do a whole lot with their arms tied behind their back, with people physically holding you. But okay, that's what you want to go with. Okay. But then they showed another video, which gets the beginning of the confrontation when it first happens before they move around to the back of the car. As I said, you really can't do much with your arms tied behind your back.
Yeah.
They arrest you that way.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that, we have this coverage of what actually happened, because like Will Smith said, racism hasn't decreased. Now we just have video of it. Hasn't increased.
It's just televised.
Right,
and
exactly.
I think the care for it or the outrage by it is because it's on camera.
Right.
Because if we had not seen the footage, there would be a different, kind of a hashtag. It would be very isolated.
Yeah.
But I will say that I have seen people of all races, colors, and creeds outraged by this event. And I hate to say that it has. I hate to say that it has taken this incident. I want to say, I hope that this is the incident, as if there hasn't been enough, right? We can't drive, we can't, explore, constructed houses. We can't, we can't, there's
right.
all of these hashtags of what we can't do, right? We can't sell CDs. We can't reach for our driver's license. We can't, make an illegal turn. We can't. So there's all these things that we can't. But in this situation, we're talking about, from my understanding, a $20 forged counterfeit bill or something that led to this, situation. And so, but in this situation, it seems like there was not a struggle. The man was apprehended on his face, handcuffed. So am I just trying to generalize this for the people? There's all these things. Well, he shouldn't have done this, and he shouldn't have reached, and he shouldn't have, there's all these he shouldn't have. And in this situation, what shouldn't he have done?
Right, absolutely. Because
what shouldn't he have done that costed him his life at this point in time?
Absolutely.
And so that's the part that I think is really the conversation that goes across racial barriers. We, of course, again, like, it's tied into the fabric of African-American, social history. But again, across racial barriers, how do we have this conversation that this thing is real, this thing is tangible, that it may not be an overt, active, I'm going to kill a Black man today, or I'm going to kill a Black person today, but it's this lack of sensitivity for our struggle, a lack of sensitivity for the Black complaint, the lack of sensitivity. And I believe, and I said this years ago after the Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, I said it years ago. I also believe that there is a fear when it comes to African Americans.
Oh, absolutely.
In situations of any sort of uncertainty about illegal behavior. Any sort of uncertainty about illegal behavior, that there is a presiding fear that if it's you or me, it's going to be you first, and I'll tell my story, and my story will likely prevail.
Yeah,
but now
that is common. That is the common theme. TV shows continue to replay that theme, and we continue to see that theme just, with what's going on. So we have some more comments. Dakisha is saying that care and concern is not applied to Black people all over the world. Absolutely. And this is more in concerning with the incident, especially with the dog. So Sharon is saying, however, the dog incident, a lot of people are more concerned about the dog. Absolutely. And I think that, it's interesting the way the media presented it. They talk about the degrees he has and how, I guess, he's considered an acceptable Black man because of all these accomplishments that he's made. Meanwhile, it doesn't matter what he's done. He didn't do anything wrong to her. and she was trying to literally get him murdered. I mean, when you
Yeah.
hear the call and the inflection in her voice, literally is to let the police know I'm afraid. But what are you afraid of?
Yeah.
And so everybody, you know, when they first saw it, people are like, oh my God, look at her and that dog. Because yeah, she was choking that dog. Like, make no mistake about it. She was choking him. And then, you know, what I think is what was happening is, I don't know that she realized she was choking him.
I don't think so. She was so
she
focused.
was losing her phone. So she leaned down, and that's kind of when he got down and was able to catch his breath.
Yeah.
Then she put the leash on him. But if you just look at it, and then it's like, you know, she went on, she called the police, and she's like, oh, this African-American man. And she was intentional with that, because she said, I'm going to call the police and tell them that I feel threatened by African-American man. Like, what is that? You know, and how do we overcome that? I mean, I don't even know if you have the answer to that. Like, what do we do with that?
I think, for me, when I saw that and I saw that threat, and knowing that they were in Central Park, again, the African-American mindset goes back to Central Park 5.
Absolutely.
Exonerated 5. Here we go with another set of lies, and the African-American race being used as the choke point, the gallows for I'm going to take you out.
Yeah.
And that is, so how do we overcome that? I mean, I think these conversations are really powerful, because we have to know that we're on one accord, and we have to know, for me, my thing is humanity wins every time. I have to know that kindness is still out there. I have to know that humanity is still out there. I have to still, know, I saw a post, and I reposted it, something about, we're not divided by race, we're divided by hatred. And so I have to know that there's more love out there and more kindness out there than there is hatred. And that all that we can do is put the hatred on Front Street and call it out for what it is, and across racial lines and creeds and colors. You know, there are some people not of color, white people, that I love, that throughout my life, I can call my best friends, I can call my sister, and so I have to stay rooted in the fact that that's not going to win my mindset. Period. That is not going to win my mindset. And so that it's hard. It's extremely difficult, because I'm very sensitive and aware that there's some people who are just like, okay, I'm Black everything. I'm not going to make friends with white people. I don't trust you white people. But that's the same mindset that got us here. It's what they did to us. So for me, that division and that exclusion and that division is just that. It's divisive, and it's tense, and it's breeded in hatred and ignorance. And so we have to know, and I think continue to flood ourselves with the fact that there is kindness out there, that there is love out there, that there is justice out there. And we just got to call that nastiness what it is.
I agree. Okay, so we have another one. She's saying that Black people are the only people scolded for being mistreated. Absolutely. Because you know, they're changing the narrative of what happened with all the cases. Well, he shouldn't have been there. And that's a common theme on Facebook. You know, a few people, like, you know, I feel like every 2 minutes when I log on or whatever, I'm scrolling, someone is like, oh yeah, I had to unfriend someone, and here's why. You know, nobody asked to be murdered.
Yeah.
Nobody asked to be murdered. And I think that no matter what color you are, I hope you truly understand that. And I think for me, what has been so disheartening behind a lot of this is, you know, my comrades who are non-Black, some of them have remained silent. And yes, I see those of you out there who are sharing the story, who are, you know, making it your business to make sure that people know. But I want you to take that a step further also. I want you to start checking these people who aren't. And while I'm not expecting you to be leading the march and being at the front and everything on your shirt is, oh, I'm Black and Black, I don't want you to do that. I want you to be authentic in who you are, but I also want you to understand the struggles that we have. And the fact that you acknowledge my struggle does not do anything to your whiteness. It doesn't. It doesn't make you who you are. Acknowledge your white privilege and what has it afforded you. And it's okay. You know,
it is what it is at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. And I think that's fair. We don't expect for our white counterparts, our white friends, like you said, to lead the march. But have the conversation. Be bold enough to check somebody on their, insensitive comments or insensitive thoughts, or even if you're not checking them, still be authentic to who you are and say, I just don't feel that way, or I just don't believe that way, or that saddens me, or that hurts my feelings to see that, regardless of race. I just believe that there's more humanity out there, and that we can kind of overwhelm the hatred with our humanity. And it's hard because right now we're in a very racially conscious, tense, political environment. And
Really
that's a
is.
whole other discussion. But I
Yes,
think we need to
absolutely. I
know.
mean, it really is. And I think that adds so many more layers to what we are experiencing.
Absolutely.
So Mia is saying that the Central Park incident was infuriating, and she agrees. The focus on the dog, or the need to qualify Christian Cooper as legit in the media, was also infuriating. She intentionally weaponized him with her call and the hysteria, all based on being called out for poor behavior. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and now she's apologizing, and I don't really want to hear it, me personally, but apparently he's accepted it. Whatever.
It doesn't feel authentic, because it goes from one extreme to the other. And I would love to say, I would like to hope, I would like to hope this was an eye opener for her, and that she has come to Jesus and, really had some kumbaya moment out of this. But it just doesn't feel authentic. It's like, you're sad because you got caught. You're not sad because of the root of the feeling behind it.
Right. I feel like it's definitely eye-opening, but I don't know that it'll change her behavior.
Time will tell.
She lost a really good job. And even though they're citing racism, I believe that a lot of it also has to do with the fact of the dog. Because, people are outraged at the treatment of an animal and not of a human, which, I don't understand. And I guess it goes back to all the images that we see, during slavery days and Jim Crow days where, these type of things were happening and it was acceptable. Yeah. So I don't know if that is the reason why people have this affliction with animals or whatever. I don't know, but I feel like I could never hold an animal in higher regards than a human. But that's just
absolutely.
Okay, wait. We have one more comment. They feel like when they acknowledge their white privilege, it is a knockdown, and that is their fault. It is societal. We all have privileges. It does not have to make the privilege a bad thing, but it's how you use it and how others allow you to use it. Absolutely. And that's important. And that's why I say, to my non-Black friends, I want you to use that privilege for good.
Absolutely.
But what I want to talk more about is, okay, so, we've talked about how a great way to start the conversation with our children, which is key. If you guys missed it, watch the replay. It was amazing. It was an integral. So, okay, we start this conversation with our kid, but how do we have this conversation with ourselves? Because I know you said, before we go in and talk to our children, we should get our minds right and all of that. I feel like if I waited till my mind was completely right, my kids might be like grown with their own kids before I can have
missed a moment. Yes, absolutely. But I think this is a start. Social media is really big, it's the platform where everybody gets to say what they want to say. But I believe at the heart of it all, we need to have these types of conversations, face to face, flesh to flesh. Let's just talk about it. And, even though you and I are in two totally different states, two totally different locations, and probably haven't had a direct conversation in maybe 20 years.
Yes, literally. Right.
Something like this will bring you.
I've seen you.
Literally. But something like this will bring people together. The commonality of how we feel is what really the conversation is about. So I feel like these conversations are powerful because we get to hear from other people. We know you're not crazy. Your thoughts get validated. Your feelings get validated. Your outrage is validated. And I think that's really important because sometimes our voice has been so quiet in comparison to that of the authority or that of the majority. And so this conversation, I feel like, is helpful to just validate how we feel. I don't feel this way by accident. I'm not going crazy. I know what I saw. I know what I feel. And I'm It's okay that I feel this way.
Okay.
It's okay that I feel outraged. It's okay that I might want to cry. It's okay that I feel like I just need to be in prayer all day. All of those things are okay. There's no right way to process any of this. But I think processing it still is the best way to go.
Okay.
Like, regardless.
Okay. I agree. Yes. And I think that, so I think for me, I was definitely in lots of conversation with people. I realized that I needed to get off social media. Even though that's too, I needed to disconnect because, you're getting it from so many different angles and so many different points of view that I really needed to kind of focus and hone in on, how I was feeling and honor my feelings. Before I could have a conversation with the kids, or even, before I could really have a real conversation for the most part with anybody, because, it's always that something that will be triggering, that will make you say something that you didn't really mean to say, but it's what came out because in that moment you were so angry. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that's fair. And I do that in general, to be honest with you. I think the news can, like I said, the media is in control of the narrative. And so for me, I really try to go to very fact-based places and get the information that I need to get, whether we're talking about, a traumatic event like this with, some, sort of, racial situation, or whether we're talking about politics, or whether we're talking about coronavirus. I try to go to very fact-based places so that we're not allowing the hysteria to take over our mind. And so, and then at some point I do disconnect. I just can't take it. Like, you can't unsee some things, you can't unfeel some things. And so sometimes I think it's best to just come off the line, disconnect from Facebook, or not watch the news, or don't press play on the thing. And just like you said, if you're on some social media, sometimes it just plays automatically. And I just know how to press pause and just, okay, I just need to disconnect. And that's when I kind of, again, go into prayer. I be really very clear about how I'm feeling, because if I don't know how I'm feeling, like you said, you can just spew out, and kind of your emotions then come out like a volcano on the wrong person, or maybe the right person. I don't know, maybe they had it coming, but still, I want to be authentic about how I'm feeling. So I do think it's important, and even for our children, we have to be careful about what they are looking at, and again, try to control the narrative they're receiving from different angles as well.
Absolutely. All right. So it looks like we have lots of people who agree that take that apology and shove it. Here's a comment from Crystal that I think is very key. With the Central Park incident, she was basically saying, your position is not to talk to me like that. And she tried to punish him for not knowing his place. And alternatively, I feel as though the police officer felt the exact same way. Because like I said in the beginning, I really wanted to believe that was not his intent. But at the point that he leaned in and looked up and he kind of had that smirk, I felt like he was like, who gonna check me, boo? Basically is what I felt like he was saying.
Ooh, yes, the nonverbal said more than enough, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's
very haunting.
Even more.
Absolutely. It is very haunting to see that image with his hand in his pocket, as if it's just another day at the park and someone's dying underneath of him. Yes, that is very haunting and tragic and scary. And so absolutely, I do believe that, and you said it perfectly, the words were weaponized. Or, maybe one of the comments was the words were used as a weapon.
Yeah.
There is now a knowing that if I say I'm threatened by African-American men, or I fear for my life, or there's just the terminology that can be used to put us in a position of submission and helplessness, and that's the weapon. Know your place.
Right. Oh, this is a great comment. I absolutely just was having this conversation with someone yesterday. She says what she hate about, basically, when we say we want to disconnect, is people say you don't care. And she's like, no, I do care. I'm just tired of seeing them. And if you think back to the situation with Ahmaud, his mom said, I saw him come in this world. I don't need to see him leaving this world. And I think that, mentally it's too much, because that's an overload. It's okay to be like, no, I didn't see the video. And I told you guys, I watched it totally accidentally. It was not my intent.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't watch. I did not watch the Ahmaud Arbery video on purpose. Again, just like you said, it just started running. I pulled up a news article and it just started running, and then I was horrified. And so I did purposefully not watch this video. But again, it's one of those things that it's the last video. It's Eric Garner. It's Tamir Rice.
Right.
It's like we're already replaying these things in our head. I wasn't there for the Central Park, exonerated 5 incident, but I saw the movie When They See Us, and I was just blown away. And so again, it's just ingrained in the fabric of our understanding of what can happen and what does happen to people of color. And so sometimes you don't need to see it. I don't need to see it. I already know what it looks like. Right. I know what it feels like. I saw it last time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's not a not caring. It's just that I can't make space for that anymore.
And I think oftentimes that people, maybe they feel like if you don't view it, you don't care, is because you're not voicing your outrage enough. And I don't know how much is enough. And I think that's a personal decision.
Personal.
And exactly. We definitely have to stop judging one another for how we handle it and how we deal with it and how we process it. I think that is extremely important because, as we said, we are already so divided and we're never going to be kind of on one, even a partial accord, if we feel like we can say what we need to say without fear of retaliation. Now, of course, if we're saying some old dumb stuff out our heads, then of course, people should be able to say whatever. And I feel like the reverse. Let's say we are saying some stuff that makes no sense. Like, one person said on her page, she was like, well, if he wouldn't have done that, that wouldn't have happened. And I said, well, you don't know that. I said, and guess what? You're not a storyteller. So we can't look back and say, oh, well, he shouldn't have done that. I said, and first of all, I didn't even know what he was charged with. And then when I heard, I was like, for a fake $20 bill?
Forgery.
I said, come on,
will end your life.
People cannot die over a fake $20 bill. Like, that's insane. And so that's what I said. I said, so, okay, he did it. Did he deserve to die? I said, and then I don't even know, did he do it? Like,
did he do it? Who knows?
I don't even know that part of the story, right? And so I'm like, be careful with what you say. But when you open your mouth, just know people are going to respond. And I tell people all the time, this is your page. This is your outlet. You can say whatever it is you want to say. Just note, there will be repercussions. And if you're good with it, then be good with it. But don't then try to cry, oh, people are treating me badly or whatever. Right. Well, think about what you've done. And I think that goes back to the story with Amy, where, now she's like, oh, people are treating me badly. Well, how did you expect them to treat you? I mean, like, I just don't understand. Did you expect to be praised? But what would you ultimately expect? And I feel like right now in 2020, yes, every other week, we have some people that are in high leadership, things out their mouth that they should totally be checked for. But that doesn't give you the right to do that. Yeah. And because of that, that's the reason why you're getting dragged. And you see that, Twitter's not letting up. Like, Karen, people whose name is actually Karen are like, please stop saying that. Like, it's the funniest thing ever to me. But it's like, no, somebody caused this ripple effect and now you got to live with the repercussions.
You're going to take this thing. You're going to take these vegetables.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So we have, someone is saying that, but cops can't be judge and jury. That's not their role. Absolutely. They are not equipped to determine who's guilty or who's not. Like, that's not your job. Absolutely. Your job is to protect and serve. And you hurting someone does not qualify as that. Your life is not threatened. You literally put your knee in his neck and pushed.
Yeah.
Come on. And so, okay, so basically, well, Jersey is saying that she heard he was signing a fake check. Got it. Okay. So he died because he went to a check cashing store. I don't even know. Was he in a check cashing store?
I don't know.
He wrote a fake check and then okay. Whatever. Like,
apparently that will take your life.
Whew, Lord. Okay, wait. So we have another comment. So she's saying 2 thoughts on these type of videos. 1, think back to how pics of the lynchings were used to dehumanize us and normalize the lynchings. Absolutely. That's what I said. I was wondering if that's the reason why people, are like, okay. When Emmett Till's mom had an open casket to let white people and others in leadership, let white people and others in leadership, as proof to what is going on with us. Absolutely. Right. The
Purposeful.
crazy part is now we have even more proof of treatment that so many people have spoken about for years. Like this treatment isn't new. We just got the video now.
Yes, we just have the image.
Like, we got the video, but it doesn't seem like anything is changing. And you're right. That is exactly why Emmett Till's mom did an open casket, because she wanted the world to see what had happened to her son for something he was accused of that he didn't even do.
Yeah. And the whole legal side of it, what happens after this, now that, these gentlemen have lost their jobs and, one of them was fired or whatever, what happens after this, that's a whole other set of worry and concern, because there's a part of us that needs to feel like there's justice done, or needs to feel like this life meant something. And so I know that I've had that state of confusion and concern before, like, how can something be judged a murder but there not be anyone charged with murder? Like, I don't understand. And so that's a whole other part of the feelings that we as people of color just have a hard time holding on to. Absolutely. It's a part of the trauma, because it feels like there's no quote unquote justice done. And once a life is taken, what really is the justice? You know what I'm saying? But somebody should be held accountable when someone dies. Absolutely. Period and end of story. Somebody needs to be held accountable.
And that's part of the reason,
intentional.
Right. Absolutely. That's part of the reason why
we be able to hold the bag.
That's why we can't heal, though, because, we go from something happening one day, and we feel vindicated in that moment. And the next thing we know, either the case is released, the person gets off, something happens. So then we're angry again. And we're like, okay, let's do, or we're trying to get back to some normalcy. It happens again. And if you just look at the patterns, the train of events that have been occurring, like, it is insane. I mean, like, literally, like, when we, when I thought about this, bringing this topic, talking about it, I just was looking at all of the Black men and women, because that's going to be a whole nother topic, guys. Don't think that I am negating our women, because the way we are being murdered and abused and no one is doing anything, that'll blow your mind. That right there will blow your mind. But when I was just looking at the names, and at first I was like, okay, well, we'll take a moment of silence for the names. I was like, we won't have a show because we won't be able to say anything. Like, just the crazy. And the number of cases that are, while the media may pick it up, it doesn't go viral because enough people don't see it and enough of us aren't talking about it, so it kind of gets swept under. But it's insane. I mean, it is absolutely insane. Just the number of cases of families who are dealing with this and trying to bring justice to their loved ones. I just can't. I mean, it's
heart-wrenching. That's a whole other
right. So Jennifer is saying, yes, it's a revolving door. There is no complete healing. Absolutely. And we gotta find some. Like, my God, like, I mean, this just cannot continue. And so my hope with this conversation is that, we will continue these conversations, both positive and negative. We will continue to step on each other's toes, and check somebody who is not doing what they should be doing or whatever. And I'm not saying tell them, oh, if you don't do X, Y, Z, you're gonna get murdered, because that's
we're not doing that.
But we gotta look at just what's happening and what we can do. And while we want to stay enraged, I've already seen where George Floyd's family is apparently asking them to stop the riots. Yeah. And yes, I'm not saying stop the riots, because I feel like, they protested down at the state building because they didn't want to wear masks, but nobody got tear gas. But now we protested and everybody's getting tear gas. What I am asking is that we stop looting. Like, that does not qualify for the cause. And that's part of the reason why the message gets muted.
Lost. Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly.
It gets very muddy. Yeah.
And I get it. Right now people want some stuff. They want to do what they want to do. But
I think some people are opportunists in that way. But I also think, Martin Luther King said that when we're looting like that, it's the voice of the unheard. It's the anger that's welled up. It's, again, a situation after situation after situation. And all of that kind of comes to the surface. From a healing perspective, I just think it's a perpetual grieving cycle. It's one of those things that we don't have full control over. And so there's always a little bit of uncertainty. So just like the grieving process, there's anger, there's sadness, there's guilt, and there's shock, and there's shame, all of that mixed in. And so I think we'll go through different stages of it. Depending on where you are, you'll go through different stages of it as the situation unfolds.
Got it. Absolutely. Okay. So apparently it was allegedly a fake $20 bill. That's what I thought as well. And that's what she said she had read in some of the articles. Right. Then she saw that apparently it wasn't fake. Right. So that's what I heard as well, too, that apparently someone said that he had tried to attempt to pay with a fake $20 bill. I guess the store told him he couldn't pay with it. And then I guess they called the police. I don't know, but I'm sure the store owner right now is probably like, damn, what did I just do?
Like it was $20. Right.
That's what happens when we call the police, unfortunately, now,
an
added layer of thought.
And let me be clear, when there is something illegal happening, call the police and let the police handle it. But I just don't feel like these situations have warranted death. The Sandra Bland didn't warrant death.
Yeah, that's insane.
So let's say she took the illegal turn. Is it a death sentence? Like, really? Right. $20. Is it a death sentence? Is it a death sentence? Is that really warranted? And so I think the comparison of the law that's broken versus the consequence we're paying is just so heavy. There's so much gravity in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. My God. So we have one, let's see here. Okay. So Jennifer is saying there really needs to be some type of legislation for holding those accountable for the injustices being committed. You are absolutely correct, but what it starts with us voting. So let's take a moment and talk about that. I don't know about you guys, but we have received notices in reference to, the mail-in ballot. If you have not gotten one or plan to be at the poll, let's change that, guys. So all of us handling these injustices start with us changing the laws. Mm-hmm. And yes, our presidential election is extremely important. Don't ever, 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 ever think I'm saying otherwise. However, our local elections play a major role in what happens. Mm-hmm. Because you're going to have to move mountains to get something to the high office, but you can always affect change locally where you live. So please vote. Vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for, although you know who I would say to vote for, but please vote. Read, weigh the pros and the cons. Don't just go in there blindly. Know what is going on, because this affects change. I mean, this affects what happens. So folks, right now where George Floyd lives, hope you guys are paying attention to what the officials that you have elected are doing in this case, how they're handling it, because that should totally tell you what your next move needs to be. I'm not saying no protest, please stop the looting, but absolutely pay attention to what they're doing, not just what they're saying, what they're doing. Because people will talk a lot, but they won't always take action. And that is what we definitely need.
That's good.
Okay, so we have another comment. So it looks like Ashley is saying that's the distinction that needs to be made. If someone is irate and stabbing someone or shooting in an open theater, call the police. Other things could be handled or simply just let go. These people were murdered for the most simplistic things. It's insane. It's insane. And it goes back to your power. Your power. We all internally as a person have power. Yes. What are we going to do with it?
And that, at the very root of the definition, is where racism comes from. It's that they have a power that we don't have. Their voice has a power that our voice doesn't have. That is at the very root of what racism is. And so there's so many people that be like, well, I'm not a racist, or, I have Black friends, of course, that's the go-to phrase. But again, it's how are you using your voice? What power are you exerting with your voice? Are you using your voice in a way that that is degrading to Black people, or causes some sort of hierarchy or power and control? It's that piece, that power and control piece, is what differentiates you in the conversation of race relations.
Absolutely, guys. That right there, that's a perfect segue to basically kind of wrap up.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being on with us.
So honored to be here. Thank you.
We have some more comments where they are basically agreeing with the impact of voting. So If you guys aren't a part of any of the We All Vote and all of those initiatives, get involved. There's a lot of things going on where they are trying to reach everybody. They're text messaging, they're emailing, they're knocking on doors, they're sending flyers, mailers, whatever, to just let us know that we need to vote. Don't not vote because your candidate was not selected. You still need to vote. There's still issues in hand that we need to address. But Dr. Melissa, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this call. It was great. I feel a little better. I felt like some weight had released. I feel like I can now go forth and really have a good conversation with my children, really check in with them to see how they're feeling. My intent for next week is that I've reached out to someone, and basically she does training on race relations. I met her at a conference, and she's the type of person that she's going to put her foot, her back, her whole thing in your mouth and not really care. And that's going to be a little painful and hurtful for some people, but this is a conversation that needs to be had. She's confirmed with me she's able to do it. I'm hoping that she can, because we definitely need to continue this conversation, because while it was a great start, we got to figure out what our next moves and what our action is. I am also going to put forth a list of books that I want everyone to share with all our friends, Black, non-Black, whatever you want to call them, for some things that we can do to move the conversation along and take action in the meantime. And if you have any suggestions, by all means, please send them to me. So if people are looking to continue this conversation with you because they need to process this, let them know how they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to reach me is through social media. I'm very tangible, very reachable on Instagram at Dr. M.E. Tate. That's DrMeTate. I'm also found on Facebook, Dr. Melissa. Is that Dr. Melissa hyphen Blind to Blessed.
DrMe Tate on Instagram.
Tate, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then on Facebook, also Dr. Melissa Blind to Blessed is my, professional page. But I'm very reachable. I will respond. And I look forward to more of these conversations. With this being Mental Health Awareness Month, it's not a conversation I want to have, but one of my biggest hashtags is necessary conversations need to be had in order for us to heal. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, perfect. This was great. Thank you guys again for joining us. You guys were a wonderful audience and participants. Love it. I will see you guys next week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye.